Hello everyone, and welcome to this Guild Wars 2 video. Today I'm actually going to be talking about systems, not necessarily a build, news, general gameplay. I mean, I guess this is kind of under general gameplay, but more specifically about visuals and now, of course, settings, now that I've been dabbling with some of the settings. But this is just kind of a video pointing out some bugs and some general improvements that could be made, and perhaps inconsistencies. I don't know how much traction this is going to get, but I would love if people watched it, maybe like discussed, or if this reached some developers and they had time to perhaps work on this with the expansion coming. And visuals are a really important part about any game. So let's jump right in. And today is going to be about visual ring of effects, AoE effect rings. Now that we're down on more even surface, I'll actually show you what the game looks like without that option ticked. So we have this AoE ring right here, and we can fire it off, and it shows you the vicinity in which this skill is taking place. This in particular is a poison field, so it will have this green line, green circle, and these like waved forms to show that it is in fact a poison field. Other fields, such as Shadow Refuge, is a dark field, has a much more prominent effect. Dark blue line, which I think visually is not encroaching and is rather good. I don't think this that doesn't have an AoE ring effect. So you kind of get the idea. There are different fields, there are different combo fields that show, but even non-combo fields will sometimes show up. So if we place down Prepare Seal Area, after a short time, you will see a white ring around the perimeter of the circle. And then of course we have the actual effect. For the sake of this video, let me just select another one as well for future reference. So we have these combinations of two different types of AoE rings. One that is not a combo field and one that is a combo field. So I always believe that, or I've believed for quite a while, that these combo fields are one of the many things that become an eyesore in Guild Wars 2, because it is an MMO, and in the open world and in world versus world, when you have a lot of these rings active, it becomes almost unreadable because they're overlapping so many times all over the place, and despite the actual effects playing off, it becomes hard to read the actual battleground and the floor. So I went into the system, into the options, because I remember someone had actually pointed it out, this feature to me. You can go into the combat, and you can, let me just pop this, it shows the effect, because I'm going to use this in a minute. You can go into the combat and movement, and you have this option that says disable area of effect rings. So this hides area of effect rings from ground targeted skills. Actually, you don't need to have this. This is actually misleading, because it's not just ground targeted skills. It's any area of effect at all. And I think that this is a pretty inconsistent and pretty poor option, and I think it should be looked at for the visualization. And if you're going to have it as an option in your game, I do think that it should be ironed out. So now with this option selected, we can look at the area of effects. So you would expect there to not be an area of effect ring. Great, and there is none. Wonderful. And then we can have this Shadow's Refuge here. There is no ring, but I actually really enjoy Shadow Refuge because there is a distinct line. So if people don't want to have that cluster and that visual bloat, you still have this visualization of the actual ring with Shadow's Refuge. This is not the case for choking gas. Choking gas, the animation only plays in the center. So if you did not have this effect going, and you were, say, in a PvP or War vs. World setting, you'd actually be at a detriment because you might want to save some visual noise of the rings and the combo fields, and especially when there are thousands of combo fields going, you don't need to look at all of them because you cannot really strategically calculate which combo field you're going to be blasting in. So it's very misleading because the animation's so small, but the actual area of effect is so much larger. So even if you were out of here, you'd be getting poisoned and ticks of damage. I would propose to still have some area indicator, such as we saw on the prepare seal area and other traps, where it's more so just that white line. Or I'll show in another in a little bit some other option that could be done. But let's stick with these area of effect rings. So you would imagine that that particular option would just disable combo field effects. And I honestly think that's what it should do. There still should be an area indicator to show players and others where the area of effects are actually playing out. Okay, so it's now, and that option is, I'm guessing, pretty old, but now, years later, whenever it was actually implemented, and with new abilities and new coding, things have gone a little awry, particularly with the Thieves' preparations. These are a relatively new line of skills. I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. So remember how Prepare Seal area had that nice graphic on the bottom when you place it, and that big effect when you release it. Now when it's prepared, you don't see anything. That's not a area of effect ring necessarily. If anything, it should still show the animation, such as like with choking gas. It shows the animation, and even on symbols, it will show the symbol, but not necessarily the radius. So here, now we should pop it. And because it's not an area of effect ring, it's the actual skill animation, let's pop it. Nothing happened. Not one thing happened. Now, for the sake of this other example, I'm actually going to be turning this off again. Disable area of effect rings. Here we have prepare 1,000 needles. We'll place it down. After a short delay, it pops up with the painted figure and, of course, when you press it, the animation. So let's take a look at what the animation looks like. All these beautiful particle effects and, quite honestly, a really great spell effect, ability effect. I think that's what more really strong abilities should have, these prominent effects. Not like this choking gas thing where you don't know necessarily where you're at unless you have the rings activated. So we have these beautiful effects, and of course we have the area ring active. This animation plays. Now, let's go back and reselect that option. Now, I might have been like, okay, it's a bit more lenient because prepare seal area could still be an area of effect. There might be, is it even comboable? No, there's no combo field to it. So I'm like, okay, it's kind of an area effect. I can see it. But then when you look at prepare 1,000 needles, it's not just the combo area of effect ring. It's the entire effect. You can even hear it. The sound is playing, but there's absolutely no visual effect playing. So this, of course, most blatantly, I hope, is a bug. It still was probably programmed in such a way to show that these non-ground targetable area of effects are ground targetable, and they're also, they have the animation themselves are considered area of effect rings. See, I even popped it again and there's no animation. So, I really, really would love for them to have more options. I mean, the options menu is a little weird, but I think that there should be a dedicated options section for visual effects. If we go into the graphics option, there's, I think, ambient occlusion effects, depth blur, effect, yeah, effect LOD. So even in the graphics option, we have something to call the visual effects. This is in one place, but if you go to another place under combat, there's a whole nother setting to tamper with visual effects. And quite honestly, I do think that there should be a dedicated one section that just focuses in on visual effects. hopefully for End of Dragons or as a user-friendly patch before End of Dragons, but I would definitely recommend for the developers to go back and make sure which abilities are actually area of effect rings. But in all honesty, I would really like this option to be completely changed. Instead of disable area of effect rings, there should be like an option box where it's disable combo field indicators. Because I still want to be able to see the area of effect. But in all honesty, I might not be super worried about the combo field rings. I instead would much rather have that option of disabling area of effect rings or combo field rings, and much rather just replace all area of effects with these white lines to show that these are friendly allied ones. And then in the same vein, I think that by selecting disable area of effect rings, I was actually encountering some Mordrum. And you know those Mordrum punishers who have the hammer and those large telegraphs? This option, if you select it, also will disable all of those. So you really don't want to be selecting this option ever because it deselects and hides many enemy AoE telegraphs, which puts you at a severe disadvantage. In all honesty, this option should not even be in the game. I would really love for them to have the option to give the player more agency to take away certain combo field effects and combo field indicators. But the way it's implemented right now, it just puts you at a detriment and at less of an advantage because you have less information. And then, of course, we have these beautiful effects showing the actual area just completely hidden. Now you can see it. So let me go over to Scourge once and talk about it a little bit more. I'm here on Scourge, and the Scourge is also a great example of how they could do these visual effects. So without having the option selected, I could use this sand shade, and you can see that instead of a white line, this ally supportive good ring is highlighted in blue. This is seen throughout many different skills, and I do think that it would be better if this option would, as I said before, hide combo field effects, but still keep up that blue ring, because you still want to know where things are, where beneficial things are. And I think it'd be better if they kept white lines, if you have that option selected, white and blue lines to be allied and friendly. They're not necessarily going to hurt you. They might actually support you. And keep enemy area of effects red and orange. Orange for those larger telegraphs that show the entire area of effect. Red typically indicating like a more subtle, this is the general area of effect. Though you typically see more orange telegraphs for PvE AI enemy abilities, like big boss battles and stuff. If they were going to take this one step further, I would actually really love for them to do something like they kind of did with the dynamic HUD, but instead have just like a checklist of, say, instead of ground targeting, this option was in fact, show combo field rings. So you could go into here and actually check off all of the combo fields that you particularly want to see. Because there are so many different combo fields, and when you get into a group setting, it can be really hard to see which one you might want to try combo fielding in. Generally, you still might not be able to, but it could give you a bit more of a line of sight, like this is where I should be at. So you could have a drop-down menu where it's like show fire field, show ice field, show water field, show dark field. And you could tick off of these options and the game would render it and say like, oh, according to this player on this account or per character, this character in particular only wants to see fire, water, lightning, and light fields. That could be a bit more of a detailed route if they did want to commit to dealing with this potential problem. Because as right now, this option is really buggy useless and puts you at a severe disadvantage. All I wanted was to see less of these big ass combo field rings, and just focus on the actual visual effect. And I also think that's a detriment to Guild Wars 2 as well, is that over the years, these abilities have become so grand in the actual radius. Guild Wars 2 back in the day used to have relatively small radii, and I do think that they should go back to that mantra or that design belief. They've kind of started to do it with Rite of Persistence in the Guardian, shrinking down the symbols, and just relying more so on the effects. However, they're not necessarily doing that uniformly. It's only for certain abilities. So even if, say, with that choking gas, you couldn't rely on the animation itself. So there's no point in deselecting disable area of effect rings, or checking off disable area of effect rings, because you're going to be at such a disadvantage. And I do think that they should take a look at this, because I really don't want to be looking at a bunch of roads, circles, rectangles, squares, out in world versus world, or in the open world boss meta trains where, you know, frames are already really low. There's so much visual clutter. And I think combo fields and area of effect rings do play a part in that. This is a bit more of a niche video talking specifically about that, but I would love for them to do more comprehensive visual effect culling, and maybe like more prominent individual character animation and effects to show that you are doing something personally, because it's always nice to see your own spell effects, while you don't necessarily need to see the other Mesmer's phantasms, because they just don't need to. So this is a bit more of a niche video. I still very much enjoy playing with disable area of effect rings in like the labyrinthine, the lab farms, like with Halloween, or if I'm just doing a meta train with a bunch of other people, because it really has saved on a lot of these rings. See, I would love if they continue to show that. But if you disable it, it's actually really interesting that this stays up even if it's disabled. And if you summon another one, it won't actually show it. And I just fell off, but thank you everyone so much for watching. I would love to hear your comments down below about this whole entire... This might literally just be me thinking about this, but I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts if you are interested in talking about this, or if you just generally don't care, and you watch this, talk about the things that I maybe had to say. But I still think that the bugs should be ironed out, because those are definite bugs, visual bugs that should not be there. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. I have Patreon down below. I have all my links down below, but I trust you guys. You guys have been on the internet long enough. Subscribe for more videos, comment, like, and share, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye, everyone.